Hey guys, this is miicrow. I wanted to make a video that talked about everything about the whole New World League event because I've seen some misinformation gone out, which is not really the fault of the people that are given misinformation, but I think the information is generally not super accessible, so I'm hoping to provide a way for that information to be generally a little bit more accessible for people. The TLDR of this event is it's a PvP focused private access event that is supported by AGS but not actually sponsored by AGS. AGS is simply giving the 20-ish plus or minus like some people that have been working behind the scenes to support this event. That has been something that has been in the works for the past 3-ish months, maybe a little more than that, give or take, but been in the works for a while and largely is thanks to a person called 303 Apples that some of you guys may be familiar with on Twitch. He is a shot caller from NA for generally what's considered to be a weaker company with cosmic scales, to be honest, but their community is a company that's kind of like no other, and it's generally considered to have one of the best communities in all of New World for from a actual like faction perspective, like from a company perspective, is generally like up there at the tippy top, along with like Supple, I would say. And it's just he's a really, really awesome person, and he's put together this event, which is something that is sort of like a gift to the PvP scene for New World, not just for war players, but for 3v3ers, OPR players, 1v1 players, etc. Because this is one of the few formats where we're actually going to be able to do an event on a server that will be a levelized playing field for everyone that is playing on it. Why does that matter? From a PvP perspective, it kind of means everything. If you have people who quote unquote swipe for gold and get the best gear, they're naturally just going to be more favored. They might get slotted more in some people's eyes, etc. So by doing this, it kind of allows people to more express their skill in some aspect, which is like the really, really big thing about it. The other thing that's really, really big about it too is it's such a large player base that is going to be involved with the event, and because people are going to be mandated to play a certain amount of wars, like I believe everyone basically has to play like half the wars of the event in total, or maybe give give or take some, but all those rules are kind of outlined in this like rule set that I can link in the description below, but I don't want to bore you guys by reading through everything, kind of give the high level deets of this, and then I'll go through some of the rules in general. But big thing is it's Amazon supported, not Amazon sponsored, so don't blame AGS if this goes terribly wrong. It is something that 20-ish people in the PvP scene have tried to be put together in order to kind of make an event that is more community focused and not just oriented towards the top levels of players. Typically from a New World like PvP kind of perspective, I would say there are between 150 and 250 players that are slotted in wars for every region, or at least in NA. EU, there might be a bit more. Other regions, there's probably less. But generally, the top companies are heavily merked out to other companies, which makes it so that newer companies don't really have an option to get into the PvP scene since the level of entry is just so high. As a result, they typically would merc out other people and then they're not actually able to grow as a company. Or if they try to grow as a company, they're just going to have to constantly push, which is just generally not a fun thing in the game. That's been kind of acknowledged by everyone at this point. Just to get kind of farmed and lose and then rinse repeat. So this is a way to kind of balance that playing field since it's a 900 player oriented event that is draft based. So that way the quote unquote best players or the players that are sought out after the most are going to be dispersed ideally evenly between all captains. That being said, it is up to captains to select their players. So some captain may select a player because they're a better shot caller, for example, or another player base captain may select a player because they are the best player in their class or something like that. Like there's stuff there that of course will be not fair to some people, but at the end of the day when you have such a big company, people are going to be given a much more fair shot at this than in any other new world oriented environment that has existed to date, which is really, really cool. It's sort of like a preview if AGS were to do like 50v50 wars or something like that, where it was just generally more open to the community to do some of these more exclusive events. Like this is an opportunity for people to get an access to that more exclusive style event under the leadership of people who have done well with in that kind of exclusive style event. That being said, the focus of this is like for me is primarily wars, but there are a lot of aspects to this that aren't just wars. Like there's 3v3 tourneys that are going to be balanced, 1v1s, 20v20 OPRs potentially that could be kind of competitive as compared to more of a kind of FFA styled OPR. Like there's stuff that we have the ability to do that we don't have the ability to do on the live server because of the levelized playing field that makes it much more interesting from a PvP perspective. To get into this event, to be honest, if you've already seen this video, it's too late to get into this first event, but there may be other rounds of this event depending on how successful it is. There are opportunities for other regions to maybe be able to do it. There's opportunities for another one in NA. The reason why this is being done in NA at first is because mainly because Apples has honestly put in the work to do it. Apples has been working on this for like 3 months, and there's been around 20 other people who have been supporting as well from the community side who are all unpaid volunteers, and that is what was required to get this event. It's not like a AGS like gave their favorite region a gift kind of thing. It's no, the favorite region like asked for resources, like went through all the channels for AGS, and then it got approved with a proper rule set and all. So that is what this actual rule set is, and there's a lot more of this information buried in the Discord that Apples has put together that has on. I think it has over. I know it has over 1,000. I think it's almost at 2,000 people now. Within like basically a week. Did I lie about that? I might have lied about that. I'm looking at it right now. It's definitely over 1,000. We'll just be conservative, and we'll say it's gotten from 1,000 to like 2,000 people within a week. So if you think about that for versus the New World Player Pop peak, that is like 10% of the player pop peak potentially is in this Discord and wants to be a participant in this event, and it's an event that is supposed to be community driven, which is something I want to like keep emphasizing because I've seen this spin where it's like, oh, this is an exclusive PvP event for the best PvPers in the game. It's like, no, no, no. If we are talking about the exclusive PvP event for the best PvPers in the game, that is Castle of Steel right now. I am sorry if you're a not super competitive company on Castle of Steel, because Supple and Dropouts have been having a 1v1 on that server for the last 6 to 8 months, and there has not been another company besides like one or two purple ones that pop up every now and then on that server that has a territory. It just gets taken over immediately. But that's kind of the nature of the game to a degree. But that's just what happens in a live server environment. Uh, Supple and Dropouts won a war, and that's just kind of what's been happening. This server will not have invasions, so it will have the opportunity for more wars. The main reason why this is in place is because the wars are going to be on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it's like 3 days where we're going to have the opportunity to war, right? And that is it. And if you have invasions sparsed in there, then people are going to be able to get less wars. There's going to be less weeks of the event that get content. PvPers, as many people know, don't like to do the invasions in this game. To be honest, from speaking from my perspective itself, if I'm going to look to play PvE right now, I'm going to go boot up Diablo 4. No offense to New World, it's just the numbers are somehow just more exciting to me. I know other people that play other games are just the same. I know people that are pro Overwatch players who are like level 90 in Diablo 4 for some stupid reason right now, and they haven't touched New World PvE. And it's nothing against New World itself. It's just like some things catered to more people than others. PvP for New World is like an itch that really satisfies me. It satisfies a lot of other people in this game, but the PvP satisfies PvPers a little bit less. That being said, stuff like the raid seems really, really interesting. It seems like that could be a really fun direction for the game, but the content in this game from a PvE perspective just simply isn't hard enough nor rewarding enough for some players, and that's kind of uh where that aspect comes from. That's more of an aside though, focusing back on this event. It is to get access to this event. There is a form that you had to fill out. I'm not going to go over that form because it's kind of past this, but the base idea is you get the Steam oriented access token for to that will get you into the PTR environment that will where the event is hosted. Everything in the event is like randomized slash fair. So territories are going to be handed out at random. People are drafted in like a snake-like format, so that's as fair as it basically can be, the most fair that it can be done. It will also take the longest, but it will be really, really interesting to see how people kind of decide on what gets picked, what comp people are going to try to play, etc. So that's the part that's like really, really interesting. Selection is encouraged to be made off of like merit, like war VODs and OPRs. To a degree, it is who you know. To be honest, any game is going to be like that, and
I would say that the best companies that will come out of this event and the people that perform the best and get the most out of it are likely not going to be people that are chosen based off who they know, and rather are kind of based off of merit slash skill that is expressed within the submissions for the actual forums itself. From a Dropouts perspective, which is the company I oriented from when Dropouts originally started, there were people who would watch like I don't even know how many hours a week, like probably 200 hours a week. Wait, that's more hours than there are in a week, basically. No, that's a complete lie. Sorry. There's probably people that would watch like 40 to 60 hours a week of VODs, and that was basically all they did. And they were just trying to figure out who was the best. That's how I got selected to be in dropouts back in the day. It was like VOD submission. Everyone's watching VODs. To be honest, at this point, from a PvP perspective, a good PvP a leader can watch a VOD for about 3 to 5 minutes and tell you off of that if you're a good player or not. For me personally, it's probably I could watch a player for about 30 seconds and then can determine what level of play the player is in. But there, it's just kind of at that point in the game where there's a big discrepancy and based on off of skill, and there's a lot of mechanics that a lot of people don't realize. That's something that hopefully this event can kind of bring the light to people that aren't inherently super known to most of the New World community, because there's stuff that's like more niche. There's things like if you look down when you scream, your scream actually goes further, which is like a unintentional bug that's been in the game for forever. But I've said this before and I'll say it again: if something has been a bug and has not been patched at a certain point, it turns into a mechanic, and that's something that you will not be able to know unless you're kind of in that top echelon of players, because that information is generally not publicly shared, because if it's publicly shared then other companies figure it out, etc. That is something that I try to kind of enlighten on this channel, and a lot of the stuff I bring up tends to get patched out. But there's also a lot of stuff that doesn't get patched out. Like on SNS, if you drop an Oblivion on it, that aura goes away until it's put back up again. So it's basically the old bug where fortified sacred ground would not heal you. It's the same concept with SNS with Nullified Oblivion. That's been in the game since the dawn of the game. That has not been patched out. So at a certain point, it becomes a mechanic they have to play around. There's stuff like that where you can't really easily teach. That is something that is going to be more present in this event that people will be able to get out of this event and hopefully bring that to other people. The main goal would be to make servers more competitive and also provide like that equalized playing field, as I want to emphasize again, because that is the main thing that is driving it. Equalized playing field. You don't have to swipe for your gear, as some people like to call it. I have never swiped, but I know a lot of people do. And there's no like kind of trade off that you have to make between getting the best gear or getting budget gear. Like there's not that concept. Everyone's going to be able to express their skill in a way that is most fair as possible. So it's just going to be a really cool, awesome event from my perspective, and I hope that we're able to do more of this. But it depends on how people do with the event. People like abuse the systems. We attack AGS, etc. over the event. I imagine there's not going to be another one. If it's really successful, people really like it. It generates a lot of cool content. It brings more people like maybe back to the game. There's more hype from the game itself when people hear this event and see this event. Like I know Shroud is still in some of our discords for a PvP perspective, not promising anything, but like that is like there is the potential for people to see it and be like, hey, that's a pretty cool idea. I want to like kind of get on that thing, and like maybe start bringing more people back into the event. So there is like an aspect where this could be a really big unique thing for New World, because the combat is really unique. Anyone that has played New World always emphasizes how good the combat is between people like Shroud and Asmongold. Well, that being said, Asmongold didn't really play the PvP, and like a lot of other big streamers, like a lot of people really like the combat of this game, and it's something that we're able to take advantage of by doing a more levelized event with less barriers to entry that are traditionally present, and allow people to access that sort of end game concept without maybe having to go through all the kind of less fun channels of like getting known, uh, making sure that you get slotted for wars and etc. And like having to bar push and all that stuff is like generally less fun than the other aspects of the game from a PvP perspective. And this is an event that will help people get the most out of that, as well as again the levelized playing field, which I've said like 20 times at this point. But I just want to iterate that that is like my favorite part about the event, and I think it is really cool, and it's going to generate a lot of hype around that. I would say this event is probably the best support Amazon has given the PvP aspect of the game since launch, which was almost 2 years ago, which is a little crazy to think about. Maybe sad for some people, but yeah, it's just like I don't think been any other support that's been on par with what this was. Everything else has kind of been, hey, we have shrinking player bases. How can we consolidate stuff? This is like an event that's like, hey, how could we give back to people? who are still part of this that were never able to experience this part of the game before, and like try to help people kind of get into the game because for the reality for a lot of people, every single server is dominated by people on what people would consider to be alt accounts. Uh, I'm like on an alternate character that I personally leveled up to level 60, so that is not the case for everyone, but it is definitely dominated by people who play it on other servers and are trying to get the most out of the PvP content, etc. So I would like the way I would describe this like event is like the classic like how do you get rid of like the skateboarders like skating around like a city where you don't want them to be skating, right? Like that's like a debate that people have, and the solution that a lot of people came up to that's been effective recently is like you build a skate park. It's like sort of the same concept where how do you kind of mitigate this PvP aspect? Like maybe you build like a PvP area and then people can kind of experience the other part of the game and like the PvP part of the game. Rather than it just being isolated to a small number of people. That might not be like the best analogy, but that's like an analogy I thought about when I thought about this event. The local New World streamers are going to be the people that are like kind of covering the event. So few people come to mind like Apple's, you boy Willie, Jules. Generally, people that are more involved with the PvP aspect of of New World will be involved with it. There are EU streamers that I believe are being contacted to be involved with it as well because we didn't expect that people from other regions would want to play in it. That being said, the application was open to anyone from any region. It is just like a kind of a time zone time commitment thing. Like from an EU perspective, if they're playing an NA war, they're playing at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. kind of thing, and some people like that is worth it to them. So that they can definitely play in the event, and there's no bar against them. But for other people, that is not worth it at all, and that makes sense too. So there's kind of an aspect there of gatekeeping that is trying to be taken away. But this event is going to be for US East on the PTR client at the beginning. The other thing I would say too is there's kind of a glimpse of the commitment to for these high level companies. Like a lot of people kind of brush it off as like, hey, this company dominates, but they don't really realize like the work that the companies kind of put into it. There are people that treat that as a full time job that are like kind of like like raid leaders kind of aspect. Like it's like a full time job at a certain point, and that's just kind of the nature of an MMO because there are so many people. There's so many people that you have to get on the same page. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scene. There's a reason why the top companies have like 5 plus consoles that are all doing specific things and all kind of working in tandem with each other in order to have the best success. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. The rule set I will link in the description. I'll link the Discord in the description as well. Uh, there is a lot of information on the event in the Discord that I think is really helpful. There's besides this is not an AGS sponsored event. This is an AGS supported event that was in the works for multiple months and is really exciting from a PvP perspective. And I hope that everyone that has not been able to experience like PvP at the highest level, maybe because it was just like really hard to get into a company, maybe it was because they didn't want to like put in that work to join a company, has an opportunity to play in something that a lot of us like really enjoy. And I will see you guys in the next video.